Amaka sat quietly on her small wooden stool, hands blackened from the morning's charcoal work, as the chatter and laughter around her grew louder. The market was buzzing, but not with kindness. Women selling fabrics and vegetables passed loud comments her way. "Look at her hands, black like the coal she sells," one sneered. "Bush girl," another shouted, making the others burst into laughter. Their eyes followed her every move with judgment, as if her very presence was an insult to their clean dresses and polished nails. Mama Chica, a loud and flashy pepper seller, took the lead in humiliating her. "You think you belong here with the rest of us clean businesswomen?" she shouted, arms folded across her wide chest. "You should sell in the forest where you came from." The others laughed again, louder this time, like it gave them power. Some even covered their noses dramatically as they passed Amaka's stall, pretending to be disgusted by the smell of charcoal. Amaka didn't respond. She sat still, stacking her small bags of charcoal neatly, hands moving with calm precision. Her silence irritated them more, but she didn't flinch. She didn't raise her voice. Her eyes held no tears, only something deep, like she was watching a game she had already won. A few children stopped to buy, and she smiled softly at them, the only warmth in her face. One young girl stared at Amaka's hands and whispered to her mother, "Why is she so dirty?" The woman pulled her child away quickly and said, "Don't talk to people like that." But Amaka heard, and still she didn't react. Under the weight of all that ridicule, Amaka simply kept working, her blackened hands moving steadily. She looked at the dusty ground for a moment, then up at the sky, as if she knew something they didn't. Something was coming, but for now she let them mock, let them laugh, because deep down, she knew the land beneath their feet had a secret, one that had her name on it. Amaka walked home slowly, her legs tired from the long day at the market. Her fingers were still stained with charcoal dust, and her clothes smelled of smoke. She passed by groups of people, some whispering, some laughing, but she kept her head high. Reaching her small home made of rusted zinc and cracked walls, she wiped her feet and stepped inside. It wasn't much, just a single room with a mat, a tiny table, and some cooking pots, but it was hers. She placed the leftover charcoal bags in the corner, dusted her hands on her wrapper, and sat down. Her eyes moved to the small tin box beside her mat. Inside were the day's earnings, crumpled notes, and a few coins. She counted them carefully, a soft smile on her lips. It wasn't a lot, but it was honest work. Her eyes then shifted to the bed. Reaching under it, she pulled out an old brown folder, edges torn, papers nearly fading. She opened it slightly, checked the contents, then tucked it back in carefully, like guarding a secret. A knock at the door startled her. It was F, her childhood friend. He stepped in, still in his school uniform, holding a small food pack. "You still working this hard, Amaka?" he said with concern. "You deserve better. You're too smart for this charcoal business." Amaka chuckled softly. "The soil that stains me today will feed generations tomorrow," she replied, her voice calm and steady. F looked confused, but he didn't question her. He knew Amaka didn't say things without meaning. They sat and ate together, talking about old times. But even as they laughed, Amaka's eyes drifted to the spot under the bed where the folder lay hidden. F couldn't see it. No one could. Not yet. To the world, she was just a poor charcoal seller. But in her heart, she carried something bigger. Her hustle was humble, but her spirit wasn't. And soon, the same hands they mocked would open doors they never imagined. Years ago, Amaka was just a teenage girl with big dreams and soft hands. Her father, Pa Zabairu, was a respected village chief known for his wisdom and kindness. While others focused on titles and praise, Pa Zabairu quietly bought lands across the region. He never bragged about his plans, only saying, "Real power moves in silence." He believed in preparing for the future, and Amaka often watched him study maps and sign documents late into the night. She didn't understand it then, but he always told her, "One day, this soil will speak for you." But things changed fast. Rumors spread that Pa Zabairu had been cheated by the same elders he once trusted. Within days, he fell ill under strange circumstances and never recovered. On his deathbed, he held Amaka's hand and whispered, "Guard the documents. One day, the soil will speak for you." Those were his last words. After his death, the village turned cold. People whispered that Amaka's family was cursed. They said her father's sudden death was punishment from the gods. Her mother, once respected, became invisible to the community. Doors were shut in their faces. Friends disappeared. Amaka had to leave school because no one would help pay her fees. Her soft hands had no choice but to learn hard work. She and her mother started selling charcoal to survive. The same people who once praised Pa Zabiru now mocked them. Still, Amaka never let go of the brown folder hidden beneath her mat. Inside were her father's land deeds, every single one signed and sealed. Her mother died a few years later, heartbroken but proud of her daughter's strength. Even as a teenager, Amaka worked with quiet fire in her eyes. She had lost everything: status, family, and dreams. But she still had the documents. She still had the soil. And deep in her heart, she remembered her father's voice. The same soil that dirted her hands would one day clean her name. It was a normal morning at the market. Vendors setting up stalls, shouting prices, and customers walking through. Then suddenly, large trucks rolled in. A construction crew in yellow helmets began measuring spaces, putting up warning tape, and placing signs that read "Future Site of Royal Plaza." Confusion swept across the market. Vendors dropped their goods and rushed to the workers, shouting questions. "What's going on here? Why are you marking our stalls?" One of the engineers stepped forward and announced, "This land has been bought legally. We're starting construction next week. Please prepare to vacate." The words hit like thunder. Mama Chica was the first to explode. "Bought by who? Nobody told us. This is our land." Her voice trembled with rage. Others joined in, protesting loudly, their voices blending into chaos. Some threatened to sue. Some cried. Others simply stood in shock, unable to understand what was happening. Amaka stood at her usual spot, arms folded, eyes calm. She didn't say a word, just watched as the same people who once mocked her now panicked like ants around a fire. Mama Chica, shaking with anger, shouted, "Who owns this land? We demand to know." The vendors rushed to the local council office that afternoon, demanding answers. The council secretary came out with papers in hand and said, "The land was sold legally. All documents are complete." That statement only deepened the fear. "Sold to who?" they shouted, but the officials refused to give a name. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some said it was a politician, others guessed a rich foreigner. Mama Chica gathered the women and declared, "We must fight this. Whoever did this will face us all." The market women agreed, forming a plan to stop the construction. In the middle of the noise and panic, Amaka quietly picked up her charcoal bags and walked home. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. She already knew who the new owner was. The storm had just begun, and she was standing at its calm. The sun was hot that morning as the market women gathered outside the land council office, their faces tense with anger and fear. Mama Chica paced back and forth, holding her head wrapped tightly, shouting about injustice. "We've sold here for years. Who dares take our land?" The others murmured in agreement, waving hands in frustration. No one knew who the buyer was, and the silence from the officials only made things worse. Then, to everyone's surprise, Amaka quietly stepped forward from the edge of the crowd. She didn't speak to anyone. She simply walked through the entrance, head high, a worn leather folder clutched tightly in her charcoal-stained hands. The women stared, confused. Some even laughed. "What is she doing here?" one whispered. "She came to beg," maybe, another guessed. But inside the office, the tone was completely different. The moment Amaka entered, the staff stood up. The head councilman smiled and said, "Welcome, Madam Amaka." He reached out to shake her hand with full respect. The receptionist quickly brought a chair. Amaka calmly opened her folder and laid out original land ownership papers, signed, sealed, and stamped in her late father's name, with full inheritance rights passed to her. The room fell silent as the documents were reviewed. Finally, the councilman nodded. "You are the rightful heir to this entire land, Madam Amaka. Everything is in order." Outside, the market women waited impatiently. Then the office doors opened. Amaka stepped out slowly.
No drama, no smile.
Just quiet strength. The officials followed behind her briefly, one of them announcing, "She owns the land. All legal." Gasps filled the air. Mouths hung open.
Mama ki ka stumblet backward.
No one spoke. The woman they mocked, insulted, and dismissed now held their entire future in her hands. Amaka walked past them with grace, her head held high, her hands still dark with soot, but now they carried power. The same hands they once laughed at were now the ones that decide. By the next morning, the entire district was buzzing with one name, Amaka. Word had spread like wildfire. The same charcoal girl, who everyone mocked for her blackened hands and poor clothes, was now revealed as the rightful landowner of the entire market. Some refused to believe it at first. How can that be? People asked in shock. But as more confirmed it, reality hit hard. Mama Chica, once bold and loud, now looked small and nervous. She tried to approach Amaka privately, waiting outside her house with a basket of gifts. "My daughter, please, forgive my words. We were just joking." Her voice trembled, but Amaka stood at the door, her expression calm but firm. "Respect isn't a gift, it's earned," she said before turning away. Other vendors who once laughed at her now came with sweet words, offering to go into business together. "We can sell charcoal in bulk," one said. "You're a true leader," another praised. But Amaka saw through their flattery. She was not interested in fake apologies or rushed friendships. She had a plan. The next week, Amaka called a meeting with all market vendors. Standing in the very place she had once been insulted, she spoke with clarity. "This land is mine, legally and rightfully. You may continue your businesses, but from now on there will be order. Every stall will pay monthly rent." Gasps filled the air. "And," she added, "a percentage will go to a new fund, the Amaka Foundation. It will pay school fees for orphaned girls in our community." There was silence. No one dared to argue. Her voice, once ignored, now carried weight. She had turned mockery into mission, and shame into strategy. From that day forward, people no longer saw Amaka as the poor charcoal girl. They saw her as a force, strong, fair, and unstoppable. The same soot-stained hands that once brought her shame had now given her power over them all. One quiet afternoon, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky gold, Amaka sat outside her home sipping palm wine. She had just returned from the market office when a black SUV pulled up in front of her gate. A man stepped out slowly, dressed in flowing white agbada and a red cap. It was Chief Namdi, one of the most powerful elders in the region, and one of the men responsible for her father's fall. Amaka's heart didn't race. Her face stayed calm. She had expected this moment one day. "Madam Amaka," he said, forcing a smile. "My child, it's been long. I came to pay my respects." He spoke gently, pretending kindness, his voice smooth like he had practiced the lines. She offered him a chair without a word. "I was close to your father," he continued, hands folded in his lap. "His death pained me deeply. I regret many things. Maybe we can start over, support each other." Amaka nodded slowly, then stood up. She walked into her house and came back with a large file. She placed it on the table and opened it, revealing signed documents, bank statements, and sealed letters, proof of land bribes, forged council approvals, and illegal resales. The chief's face dropped. "You betrayed my father," she said, her voice steady. "And I've kept this proof for years." The chief tried to speak, but no words came. "I won't take you to court," she continued, "but you will give back half your wealth. Donate it to build schools, clinics, and clean water systems in our village. You have 1 week." Chief Namdi's hands trembled as he picked up his cap and stood. "You're your father's child," he whispered, then walked slowly back to his car. Amaka didn't watch him leave. She returned to her chair, calm, powerful. The man who once helped destroy her family had just bowed to her terms. The past had returned, but this time, she was the one writing the ending. The market no longer looked like the place it once was. The broken stalls were gone, replaced by bright new ones painted in cheerful colors. The muddy paths had been paved, and proper waste bins now stood at every corner. Even the air smelled cleaner. It wasn't magic, it was Amaka. With the rent money from the vendors and the funds she demanded from Chief Namdi, she had transformed the entire space. Everything ran smoother now. There was order, respect, and progress. At the entrance of the market stood a tall banner with bold letters, Enkay Foundation, from ashes to authority. Below it was the image of Enkay, dressed in a crisp outfit, standing proud with her once charcoal-stained hands now gloved in dignity. People came from other towns just to see the market and hear her story. Young girls followed her around, their eyes wide with admiration. "Auntie Enkay, I want to be like you," one whispered as she helped her mother sell tomatoes. Enkay would smile and touch their heads gently. "Use your mind. Use your hands. Don't let anyone's words define your future." One day, a journalist from the city came to interview her. With cameras flashing and a microphone in front of her, Enkay sat calmly and answered each question. When asked how she went from selling charcoal to owning the land, she said softly, "Let them laugh at your hands. Just make sure those hands are building something." The clip was posted online. Within hours, it went viral. People all over the country shared her story. Some cried. Some said she gave them hope. Others said they had mocked people like Enkay before and now felt ashamed. Her message was simple but powerful. Dignity doesn't come from how you look, but from what you build with what you have. Enkay didn't chase fame. She just wanted to change lives. And without shouting or begging for attention, she became a symbol of silent strength. The girl they once laughed at had now built a future that many could only dream of. One hot afternoon, a large crowd gathered at the center of the market square. Word had spread fast. Mama Chica had called for a public meeting. People were shocked. The same woman who once ruled the market with her loud voice and sharp tongue now stood quietly in front of everyone, holding a microphone with trembling hands. Her usual boldness was gone. Her eyes were red, and her voice shook as she began to speak. "I want to say something I should have said a long time ago," she said, looking straight at Enkay who stood at the front of the crowd. "I mocked you. I laughed at your hands, your clothes, your hustle. I made others laugh too. But I was wrong. And I'm sorry." The market square fell silent. No one moved. Tears rolled down Mama Chica's cheeks. "You are the kind of woman I wish I had been. Strong, patient, and wise. I let pride blind me. But today, I humble myself before you and this community." Enkay stepped forward. She didn't smile, but her face was soft. She reached for the microphone and said clearly, "I accept your apology, Mama Chica. But understand, respect is not about where you start. It's about where you rise." The crowd broke into applause. Some wiped tears, others nodded in agreement. The tension that had once filled the market disappeared. Old rivalries faded in that moment, and a new sense of unity settled over the vendors. After the meeting, Enkay met with the market board and used part of her foundation funds to organize free business workshops for all the vendors, men and women. They would learn how to manage money, grow their stalls, and support each other. No one would be left behind again. Mama Chica attended the first workshop, sitting in the front row, listening closely. Enkay watched from the back, her arms folded, a quiet smile on her lips. She had turned pain into power, and now she was building something greater than success. She was building community. The sun rose gently over the market, casting a golden glow on everything it touched. It was a special day, and the market was buzzing, but not with noise, rather with quiet respect. Stalls were freshly painted, the floors swept clean, and everyone stood waiting. Then she appeared, Enkay, dressed in a stunning white lace gown that flowed as she walked. Her head was high, her steps calm and proud. Her once charcoal-stained hands now shimmered with gold bangles, a symbol of what she had built from nothing. As she made her way through the market, silence followed her steps. One by one, people bowed their heads in greeting. Some placed their right hands on their chest. Others simply whispered, "Good morning, Madam Enkay," with genuine honor in their voices. Children stepped aside, their eyes wide with wonder. Women who once laughed at her now smiled with admiration. Even Mama Chica stood quietly at her stall, nodding in deep respect as Enkay passed. Enkay didn't rush. She moved slowly, soaking in the moment. Every corner of that market held a memory, of mockery, of struggle, of long days under the sun. But now it all looked different. It wasn't just a place of business anymore. It was a place of transformation. As she reached the center of the market square, Enkay paused. She looked down, then slowly bent and touched the earth with her fingers. Her voice was low, almost a whisper, but those closest heard it clearly. Papa! They know now. She stood up straight, wiped her hands gently on her gown, and walked forward again, this time past the market, beyond the applause, into a future she had earned with dignity. The camera would capture her silhouette in slow motion, moving like a queen who had risen from ashes. Amaka didn't need to say more. Her walk, her silence, her strength, they told the story. The same hands they once laughed at had built a legacy, and now the world was watching her shine.